The technique of removing excess salts from seawater is crucial in making it safe and usable. But this process of water desalination is also energy intensive. Saudi Arabia is the world's largest producer of desalinated water.
Water is a critical resource for economic prosperity in a country. And yet, for the largest country in the world without a river, and more than 95% of its land covered by desert, Saudi Arabia boasts of the largest economy in the Middle East and North Africa region, with a GDP of about $800 billion in 2020. The country is home to the world's largest sand desert, the Rub al Khali, which spans an area of about 250,000 square miles of the country's total 830,000 square miles, thus making the country one of the harshest environments on Earth. But with Saudi's lack of local water supply, the pressing question is, how does the country manage to sustain itself so prosperously? Well, the answer's more fascinating than you could ever imagine. So sit tight as we explore how Saudi Arabia miraculously gets water in the desert. For a country built on oil wealth, it may seem ironic that a basic necessity like water poses a significant challenge amidst the luxury and abundance. Even the Saudi government acknowledges that Saudi Arabia, with its population of 35 million, including approximately 9 million non-nationals, is confronted with a severe water shortage. With demand increasing at a rate of 5% annually, the country faces the risk of running out of water within the next 2 decades. Plus, it doesn't help that the situation's further compounded by predictions of lower rainfall in the future and escalating temperatures which would result directly from climate change. The country is situated in one of the hottest and driest regions on Earth, receiving only an average of merely 100 millimeters of rain per year. But despite living in a desert-dominated land with no natural rivers or lakes, Saudis have become accustomed to paying minimal amounts for their water, thanks to generous government subsidies. Consequently, they've become some of the world's highest consumers, utilizing an average of 350 liters of water per person per day. In comparison, the equivalent figure in Europe is approximately 130 liters per day. Interestingly, a staggering 80% of Saudi Arabia's water usage is attributed to agriculture. This is a result of the government's program in the late 1970s and 1980s, which aimed at achieving food self-sufficiency. But they just didn't have enough water to make this a reality. So, in order to facilitate this, subsidies were provided for pumps and energy, enabling farmers to extract underground water. However, this didn't come without any backlash, as the irrigation techniques employed during that period were rudimentary and thus often involved flooding vast stretches of desert for crop cultivation. Nevertheless, the agricultural sector appears to be booming as the country's emerged as one of the world's leading wheat producers, despite the fact that it takes an average of 1,000 tons of water to produce a single ton of wheat. However, in recent years, the government has abandoned the self-sufficiency program and announced the cessation of subsidies and domestic purchases of wheat and numerous other crops. Instead, Saudis have been encouraged to invest in land and water resources abroad through the King Abdullah Initiative for Saudi Agriculture Investment Abroad. This new initiative was brought about as a result of the escalating water crisis. To address this crisis, the Desert Kingdom has increasingly relied on desalination plants for water production. Now, you might be wondering what desalination is and how it helps in this situation. It's a process that involves the removal of salt from seawater to produce fresh water. Fresh water is an essential resource crucial for sustaining life on Earth. However, its availability is limited, and numerous individuals worldwide face challenges in meeting their basic water needs. Thus, the process of desalination has become completely revolutionized by modern technology, and due to Saudi Arabia's water problems, the country stands as the world's largest user of this technology. Desalination plays a crucial role as a major source of water in the country. Since the process involves converting brackish seawater into potable water, Saudi Arabia not only holds the distinction of being the largest user of the technology, but also the largest producer of desalinated water worldwide. In fact, the Saline Water Conversion Corporation, SWCC, operates 27 desalination stations, which collectively produce over 3 million cubic meters of potable water per day. These plants contribute more than 70% of the water supply for cities and also fulfill a significant portion of the water requirements for industries. Further, they also serve as a vital source of electricity generation. As a result of this initiative, even though water scarcity has emerged as a pressing global issue that demands immediate attention, contrasting situations prevail in the Middle East, with affluent nations like Israel and, of course, Saudi Arabia continually adding new desalination plants to meet the rising water demand. In Saudi Arabia, over 30 coastal plants process millions of gallons of water each day, which is then transported hundreds of kilometers to major cities like Riyadh. However, as is common with modern-day technology, this heavy reliance on desalination presents its own set of challenges. At first glance, desalination appears to be a promising concept. If successful, it could improve global access to fresh water, thereby enhancing overall quality of life. In fact, there are already thousands of desalination plants operating worldwide. However, it's important to also explore the potential negative environmental impacts and drawbacks associated with this process. According to a study, the negative environmental impacts of desalination outweigh the positives. By 2018, there were nearly 16,000 desalination plants worldwide. But regrettably, these facilities generate significant amounts of waste and toxic chemicals, posing harm to the planet and wildlife. According to the study, the production of approximately 95 million cubic meters of fresh water by these desalination plants also results in the generation of 141.5 million cubic meters of brine waste, a staggering 50% more than previously estimated. Brine contains harmful substances such as chlorine and copper, and it has a salt concentration of 5%, higher than the typical salt water's 3.5%. This is where the problem arises, as the disposal of the produced brine is a challenge, especially since many desalination plants release it into natural bodies of water, leading to adverse effects on marine life. Specifically, brine discharge reduces oxygen levels in the surrounding water near these facilities. The American Museum of Natural History highlights that sea creatures need to consume significant amounts of water to compensate for the elevated salt content in their environment. In addition to its adverse effects on marine life, Saudi officials are attempting to reduce state expenditures, and desalination happens to be a costly endeavor. Estimates suggest that to meet the growing water demand, as much as $29 billion must be invested in desalination over the next 15 years. Plus, the desalination process requires substantial amounts of energy, which is why Saudi Arabia consumes up to 1.5 million barrels of oil per day to fuel its desalination plants, even surpassing the entire daily oil consumption of the UK. It increasingly doesn't help that desalination appears to be a Middle Eastern thing due to the wide range of deserts in the region. Even Abu Dhabi, situated near Saudi Arabia and the Gulf of Oman, has already established 22 solar desalination plants. In fact, they've also recently embarked on a groundbreaking venture by collaborating with EO Water, a small French company, to test a wind turbine that generates water. Ground-mounted tests for the prototype began a couple of months ago, yielding an impressive daily output of 500 to 800 liters of potable water extracted from the arid desert air. EO Water envisions that the volume can be further increased to surpass 1,000 liters by deploying the turbine on a base-mounted system, thereby enhancing wind speed. Thibault Janin, EO's marketing director, expressed confidence in the technology, stating, "In Abu Dhabi, we've demonstrated the capability to produce substantial amounts of water from air with humidity levels of 15 to 20%, providing solid evidence of the technology's effectiveness." Now, although EO Water was established in 2008, the original concept was conceived by founder Marc Parent back in 1997, while he was living in the Caribbean and working as an engineer. Facing a lack of access to fresh water and tired of relying on bottled water, Paron devised a system to collect condensation from his air conditioner. This successful approach prompted him to combine the idea with a wind turbine, envisioning its application for off-grid communities. Paron further emphasized the interest in the technology's potential to benefit remote communities in the Middle East, stating that in the Middle East, the focus primarily lies on what the technology can offer to isolated communities. He referred to data from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, indicating that an annual investment of $10 billion is required to halve the number of individuals in developing nations who lack access to clean drinking water. This investment, in turn, could generate an economic boost of $38 billion in those regions. Therefore, he highlighted the significance of their system, believing that it empowers ordinary individuals with the means to avert a crisis that could potentially arise within the next 5 to 10 years. However, to meet the demand for water due to rapid growth and development, the Middle Eastern Kingdom has had to adopt other innovative approaches in obtaining this vital resource. Another primary source of water in Saudi Arabia has been through aquifers, which are basically vast underground reservoirs. In the 1970s, the government embarked on an extensive effort to identify and map these aquifers, estimating their capacity. This initiative allowed for the drilling of tens of thousands of deep tube wells in promising areas, catering to both urban and agricultural water needs. As a result, these measures are essential for meeting the growing water demands of cities, industries, and the overall development of this country. But the country doesn't just rely on these two processes. In a bid to capture surface water from frequent flash floods, Saudi Arabia also relies on the construction of dams. These dams, numbering over 200, serve to collect approximately 16 billion cubic feet of runoff each year in their reservoirs. Some notable dam mentions include Wadi Jizan, Wadi Fatima, Wadi Bisha, and Najran. Of course, there's the question of how exactly water from the dam is being utilized maximally. First, the collected water is primarily utilized for agricultural purposes and is distributed across extensive networks of irrigation canals and ditches, revitalizing vast stretches of previously unused fertile land. This has helped recycled water emerge as a growing water source within the kingdom. Presently, Saudi Arabia has set a target of recycling up to 40% of the water used for domestic purposes in urban areas. In pursuit of this goal, recycling plants have been established in major urban areas and industrial centers such as Riyadh and Jeddah. The recycled water obtained from these plants is then employed for irrigation in agricultural fields and urban parks, ensuring sustainable water utilization practices. And while still on the topic of rationalizing water consumption, Saudi Arabia also unveiled a national program aimed at setting ambitious targets to significantly reduce usage. The announcement was made during the Saudi Water Forum 2019 held in Riyadh, coinciding with World Water Day on March 22, 2019. During the forum, Abdul Rahman Al Fadli, the Saudi Minister of Environment, Water and Agriculture, launched the Katra program. This initiative, designed to curtail water consumption and promote water sustainability in the country, even has its own dedicated website, allowing citizens to register and pledge their commitment to water conservation. The forum aimed to foster sustainability in Saudi Arabia's water management sector, and to do this, they leveraged international expertise in the field, attracted foreign investments, and promoted the adoption of advanced water technologies. According to the Katra website, Saudi Arabia ranks as the world's third largest per capita consumer of water, following the United States and Canada. And through the Katra program, the Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture aimed to reduce daily per capita water consumption from 263 litres to 200 litres by 2020, and further to 150 litres by 2030. The statement highlighted that Saudi Arabia has one of the highest per capita water consumption rates globally, which is evident not in line with its water conditions and could go on to cause more harm than good for the nation at large. Another aim of the Quadra program was to raise awareness about the importance of water conservation and propose strategies for rationalizing water usage in both industrial and residential sectors. Everyone knows how important it is to conserve water, but sadly not everyone practices these methods, which is why another helpful aspect of the program was also the emphasis on the need for individuals to modify their own water consumption habits. Dr. Abdul Hamid Al-Zahra, advisor and director of the Water Projects Monitoring Office at the Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture, also delivered a speech at the forum. His speech provided valuable insights into the ministry's significant initiatives and projects, further highlighting the kingdom's water sources and their relevance to the agricultural, urban, and industrial sectors. These water sources include desalinated water, renewable groundwater, non-renewable groundwater, treated wastewater, and surface water. In addition to Dr. Al-Zahra's insights, Dr. Jacob Tompkins, co-founder and CTO of London's The Water Retail Company, also emphasized the need for sustainable water practices in Saudi Arabia. He revealed how the scarcity of surface water and the depletion of groundwater supplies, plus the reliance on extensive desalination, poses concerns about long-term sustainability. Dr. Tompkins drew attention to California as an example, where severe drought led to restrictions on water supply and prompted behavioral changes and technological advancements, resulting in a remarkable 25% reduction in water use. Drawing parallels between Saudi Arabia and California, Dr. Tompkins highlighted the advantages that the kingdom possesses. Unlike the American state, Saudi Arabia has the opportunity to plan and take action due to the absence of an immediate water crisis. But this doesn't mean that desalination would be completely nullified. While desalination will obviously continue to remain a necessity, Saudi Arabia plans on leveraging information technology, behavioral campaigns, and optimized systems to transition from being one of the highest water consumers to becoming one of the lowest. In line with these goals, Saudi Arabia announced plans in February 2018 to construct 9 water desalination plants on the Red Sea coast, with a combined production capacity of 240,000 cubic meters of water per day. The project, which was expected to be completed within 18 months, aimed to supplement the existing 30 desalination plants located in 17 different areas across the country. Now, although the water crisis in Saudi Arabia doesn't currently result in the loss of millions of lives, it exacerbates the unsustainable water consumption in one of the world's most water-scarce countries. As is often the case with geopolitical and environmental issues, the most vulnerable segments of society are likely to suffer the most if the government doesn't respond responsibly to the impending crisis. Fortunately, the government has made attentive efforts through various programs to prevent such an incident. Such initiatives receive strong support from NGOs worldwide, who focus on various aspects of the crisis to help the Saudi people conserve their most precious resource, water. In addition to this, by aiming to achieve 100% utilization of treated wastewater by 2025, Saudi Arabia is positioning itself to become the world's 3rd largest market for water reclamation and reuse, following China and the USA. Currently, the municipal wastewater treatment and reuse sector in Saudi Arabia is valued at $4.69 billion. And given its size and potential for growth, it's crucial for companies and private investors to gain a comprehensive understanding of this industry. While markets such as leak detection, water conservation technologies, and design, build, operate contracts have witnessed recent growth, the primary sectors in the water industry continue to be desalination, new infrastructure development, and wastewater treatment, which is why it's important to recognize that desalination alone does not provide a comprehensive solution. Even though the production costs of desalination have decreased over time, environmental and transportation costs must also be taken into account. Riyadh, being the largest consumer of water among all cities in the country, receives desalinated water from a facility in Jubail, which is located over 400 kilometers away. Pumping water over long distances is expensive, and leakages are a regular occurrence during the process. Besides, the transfer of wastewater system management from the Ministry of Municipalities and Rural Affairs to the Ministry for Water and Electricity in 2007 signifies a shift of the country towards recognizing treated wastewater as a valuable water source. As a matter of fact, a case study has demonstrated that water savings through reuse and conservation in the natural gas and crude oil sectors alone can help conserve up to 222 million cubic meters of fresh water annually, equivalent to approximately 1/3 of the country's total industrial water demand in 2009. The study also indicates that treated wastewater has the potential to meet 26% of the urban water requirements in the kingdom. However, it's important to note that treated wastewater is limited to specific uses, such as industrial purposes and irrigation of public lands, and is not suitable for drinking. Nevertheless, the existing infrastructure for collecting and treating wastewater in the kingdom is inadequate. In reality, in 2014, the sewage generated in major Saudi cities exceeded the capacity of treatment plants by 250 million cubic meters, leading to inefficient sewage treatment that poses risks to public health. To address this issue, the Saudi Ministry for Water and Electricity estimates that the sewage sector will require a $53 billion investment over the next 15 years. However, although modern water reclamation systems may require significant upfront investment, they also happen to offer substantial long-term benefits. So, keeping in line with the miraculous efforts that have gotten Saudi Arabia to be so prosperous despite its water problems, the world can confidently anticipate the implementation of more policies favoring water reclamation and more innovative approaches in dealing with their water situation. Let us know if you've ever tried the desalination process in the comments below, and what other processes do you think the Saudis can employ to generate more water?